heartbreaking and devastating. World-renowned chef, best-selling author, award-winning host of Parts Unknown, and our friend, Anthony Bourdain, has died.
There was more than just a famous chef lost when Anthony Bourdain passed away on June 8, 2018. A guy whose courageous storytelling, passion for travel, and love of good cuisine brought people from all across the globe closer together was mourned by his fans. Anyone who has ever been restless, interested, or hungry for more could hear Anthony's voice. He wasn't limited to the culinary realm. His life may have appeared idyllic from the outside, but that was far from the truth. For a long time, Bourdain's ex-wife, Otavia Busia Bourdain, kept silent about the difficulties they had as a couple. However, now she's speaking up about what it was really like to be married to a guy whose brilliant personality was tempered by his chaotic antics. Follow along with us in this video. You know, Anthony Bourdain came into this world on June 25, 1956 in Manhattan, where he was immersed in a combination of culture, intelligence, and a little bit of mayhem. His mother, Gladys, was a strict editor at the New York Times, while his father, Pierre, was a devout French Catholic who worked in the classical music sector and spent his summers in France. Bourdain should have grown up reading public relations and playing the violin, given his parents' character, rather than snatching oysters from a fisherman's boat and breaking into restaurant kitchens. The life that Bourdain led as a youngster in Leonia, New Jersey, was anything but ordinary. Even though he had enough of care and attention, he wished he had his peers' carefree attitude. Although he was faithfully involved in the Boy Scouts and likely reminded to honor his French ancestors, Anthony secretly yearned for more. This defiant desire had its beginnings on a family visit to France, when a taste of an oyster altered his worldview. After finishing high school in 1973 at Dwight Englewood, Bourdain attended Vassar for 2 years of college. However, the sweaty, hectic kitchens of seafood establishments like the Lobster Pot in Provincetown, Massachusetts were far more appealing to him. Forget Vassar. Bourdain found his new school in the tenacity, determination, and colorful ensemble of personalities who worked behind the scenes. He attended the Culinary Institute of America to hone his craft, and eventually graduated in 1978 as a result of this decision. Sullivan, a popular establishment on 14th Avenue, was one of the restaurants that Bourdain took over after that. He was competent in the kitchen and could even prepare a menu, but storytelling was his true strength. Actually, Bourdain was hustling on the Lower East Side of Manhattan and attempting to get into writing in the mid-1980s, a long time before he became the famous globe-trotting chef that we all knew. He began submitting unasked-for works to Between C and D, a regional literary journal. An honest and grittier story about a chef on the quest for heroin was one of his earliest published works. It reflected the mayhem he frequently witnessed in the food industry. That wasn't the end of it. Gordon Lish was a famous editor who was recognized for giving writers constructive criticism. He ran a writing group in 1985 that he joined. It wasn't easy to break through, even with skill, but this experience helped him refine his natural voice. In 1990, Bourdain impressed one of Random House's editors and landed a tiny book contract. The 1995 publication of Bone in the Throat was his debut novel. Despite having all the humor and sharpness one would expect from Bourdain in a murder mystery set in the world of food, the book failed to sell even a single copy. He persisted in promoting his work by walking door to door and paying for his own book tour. A few years down the road, his second book, Gone Bamboo, was an equally commercial failure. That may have been the final straw for the average person, but Bourdain wasn't average. Although there was no immediate return on investment from the writing, it helped set the stage for the subsequent development of television. Kitchen Confidential, his seminal novel, revealed the restaurant industry's dark secrets and propelled him to stardom. The Food Network took notice of his distinctive combination of sarcasm, ruthless honesty, and profound reverence for cuisine and culture. His 2002 first series, A Cook's Tour, was presented to him by them. Just see the globe, try every food, and report back on your experiences. That was the basic idea. Even though the program only lasted 2 seasons, it was only the start. Through his 2005 Travel Channel series Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations, Bourdain had finally found his footing. You wouldn't call this a typical cooking program. It wasn't the food that made it remarkable. It was Bourdain's ability to connect with the people. Street cuisine, local traditions, and the tales behind the meals were more important than luxury restaurants. He could make you laugh 1 second and think profoundly the next. He had a gift for combining comedy with serious understanding. During Bourdain and his crew's 2006 Beirut shoot, there was one of the most dramatic parts of the episode. The escalation of the Israel-Lebanon conflict transformed what began as a routine shot into a terrifying ordeal. With the assistance of a local fixer he called Mr. Wolf, after the pulp fiction hero who solved mysteries, Bourdain recorded the stress, terror, and humanity of the situation while stranded in a hotel with other foreigners. The U.S. Marines were able to rescue the crew in the end. Food wasn't the only thing that mattered in that episode. Survival, perseverance, and the unexpected ways war can bring people together were all themes. It cemented Bourdain's status as a storyteller capable of delving into topics outside food, and it garnered an Emmy nomination. There was no one else whose voice matched Bourdain's. His manner, as Nigella Lawson put it, could go from outrageously profane to breathtakingly lyrical all at once. Even while Bourdain seemed to be savoring all of this success in public, his personal life was anything but. The beginning of Anthony and Nancy Putkowski's first marriage was quite typical of a high school relationship. Following Nancy to Vassar College in New York, Bourdain was enchanted by her defiant nature after meeting her at New Jersey's Dwight Englewood School. Their bond deepened over time, and they tied the knot in 1985. During the challenging early stages of Bourdain's culinary career, Nancy stood at his side, offering encouragement as he ascended the culinary ladder. The success of Bourdain's show Kitchen Confidential, however, caused things to shift. They began to feel pulled in many directions by the fame, the continual traveling, and the limelight. The increasing scrutiny that accompanied Bourdain's success wasn't something that Nancy, who favored a life that was less public, was particularly interested in. They filed for a dissolution of their marriage in 2005 when signs of infidelity began to emerge in their relationship. But Bourdain never stopped praising Nancy for everything she did for him. Ottavia Busia, an Italian entrepreneur and mixed martial fighter, changed Anthony's life when his marriage to Nancy Putkowski ended. Celebrity chef and friend of Anthony Bourdain, Eric Reipert, felt the two would hit it off and introduced them. The chemistry between Bourdain and Ottavia was apparent, even if they were 22 years apart in age. Their mutual appreciation for the hospitality industry brought them together shortly after Ottavia took over as manager of Geisha, a restaurant in New York City. There was nothing ordinary about Ottavia's journey to the United States and the restaurant business. She had been planning to become a dentist in her hometown in Italy before she had a change of heart and left for the United States with only $300. She became a fixture in New York's cutthroat restaurant industry, where she rose through the ranks to become general manager of Geisha. She first crossed paths with Bourdain there, and their relationship blossomed immediately. Their relationship blossomed into an unbreakable bond as Bourdain got enthralled by her quest. Bourdain finalized his divorce, married Ottavia, and became a parent in 2007, all within a very short period of time after they began discussing tattoos. During Ottavia's lengthy shifts at the restaurant, they would converse for hours about her day and Bourdain's background in the industry, which deepened their friendship. To outsiders, it may have appeared little, but to them, it was a profound means of connection. They were able to overcome the obstacles that came with their respective hard jobs as their romance blossomed. As Bourdain's star rose, he spent more and more time away from home, while Ottavia kept working until she gave birth. Their already hectic schedules began to feel like a tightrope walk. Still, they stayed connected because they loved each other's cuisine, culture, and the unpredictability of life. The demands of Bourdain's profession made it hard for him to strike a balance between family life and his beloved role as a father. He was gone for about 250 days a year for parts unknown, and his wife started to feel the pressure of his frequent travels. His bond with Ottavia crumbled under the weight of his love for his daughter and the happiness that parenthood offered him. They finally decided to split up in 2016. Even before his divorce from Asia Argento was official, Anthony, similar to his behavior after his previous marriage, moved on quite quickly. It seemed like an infatuation from Bourdain's adolescent years when he initially met Asia Argento. Steve, Bourdain's buddy, claims that the chef was utterly smitten with her, going so far as to liken it to the thrill of his first serious romantic engagement. There was obvious electricity between them, and their relationship developed rapidly. Known for his outgoing nature, Bourdain couldn't help but brag about her in interviews and on Instagram. Their friendship progressed, and Bourdain's dedication became apparent. He publicly backed Argento, particularly when she rose to prominence as a #Me Too movement leader. He was faithful and unfaltering in his support of her, and he respected her bravery in speaking out against Harvey Weinstein. Their connection went beyond a simple romantic one. It was firmly grounded in mutual regard and an appreciation of one another's professional paths. Their bond, however strong and passionate, wasn't without its difficulties. Their occupations, which required extensive travel for both Bourdain and Argento, kept them apart for extended periods of time. They decided to keep things casual between themselves, allowing each other the space to go their separate ways while yet being close. The arrangement was functional for a while, but the growing stress was due to the increasing time and distance between them. Their passionate personalities and the demands of their hectic lives created difficult-to-manage problems. Still, it seems like Bourdain was happier than ever before having Argento as a part of his life. He spoke about how much better he was feeling in her company, how he had not been this happy or fulfilled in a long time. The simplicity of their bond brought him solace, even though he had no desire in remarrying. He was, however, open to the idea of living with her. Bourdain was grateful that Argento recognized and acknowledged the importance of work to him. They experimented with what they dubbed a free relationship, in which they were emotionally bonded but allowed each other the room to follow their dreams. Although it was effective at first, their relationship began to exhibit signs of strain as a result of the long distance and hectic schedules. The catastrophic end that Anthony would meet as a result, however, was a surprise to everyone. It appears that Bourdain was overcome by a combination of loneliness, weariness, and profound discontent with his life in the days preceding up to his passing. Once something he had wholeheartedly pursued, his fame now seemed stifling. The continual scrutiny, the weight of expectation, and the growing distance from what had formerly been important to him were all things he despised. It seems as though his disconnection from reality simply widened as his career flourished. There was obvious tension in his relationship with Asia Argento as well. Their once intense and passionate relationship had become distant. When he found out that her affair had taken place in a hotel that held sentimental value for them, the grief and betrayal he felt from the stories about her affair only became worse. For him, the emotional burden of it all was too much. In spite of his best efforts, Argento remained distant and unresponsive when he asked if he could do anything to help. Their once promising relationship had devolved into a draining back and forth that had only served to heighten his feelings of loneliness. Bourdain appeared to withdraw even farther into himself as the hours slipped away. He was emotionally devastated by the combination of his personal troubles and the responsibilities of his work. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to shake the crushing despair that hung over his last days, and he was left to cope with emotions of desolation and abandonment. The untimely demise of Anthony Bourdain stunned the globe on June 8, 2018. Chef and close friend Eric Reipert discovered Bourdain's body in his room at the La Pyramide Hotel in Kaysersberg, Alsace, France, when the two were recording an episode of Parts Unknown. Rupert wanted to make sure Bourdain was okay because he hadn't eaten since the previous night's supper and breakfast. He learned the tragic news that Bourdain had committed suicide. The news of Bourdain's passing spread like wildfire, shocking everyone who knew and loved him. At many, Bourdain appeared unstoppable because to his fearless nature, quick humor, and talent at forging cross-cultural connections. His death was a tragic reminder that even the most successful people, who seem to have it all and make a lot of others happy, can have problems within. What happened following Bourdain's death was just as shocking as the death itself, which was a terrible blow to his many admirers. Following his death, his ex-wife Otavia Busia revealed details about their marriage, illuminating previously unknown facets of Bourdain's complicated existence. In the documentary Roadrunner, Bourdain's ex-wife Otavia Busia reflected on the challenging time after their 2016 split, which came after his tragic death. After they parted ways, she detailed the subtle change in Bourdain's behavior. As her emotional burden grew increasingly obvious, the once vibrant and adventurous character she knew began to fade. It appeared like a good start when Bourdain chose to pursue treatment, and Otavia thought he was handling his problems, so she was first relieved. Because of this, she felt she could relax and let him figure things out while she stepped back. She now confesses that she felt profound remorse for not keeping a closer eye on him during those critical moments. From meeting through a common acquaintance, Eric Rupert, to their marriage and finally to their choice to divorce, the documentary covered their whole relationship. His downward spiral was especially difficult for her to understand because their link was strong long after their marriage ended. Her thoughts and feelings highlight the complicated and sometimes contradictory feelings that accompany caring for someone who is suffering, the desire that things are getting better, the shame of withdrawing, and the constant pain of questioning whether more might have been done. The fact that Anthony battled addiction is another under-discussed aspect of his life. The fact that Bourdain's battles with addiction were an integral aspect of his captivating, uncensored reality made them more than simply a chapter in his life. Bourdain got ensnared in a drug cycle in the 1980s when he was navigating the tough world of New York City kitchens. His addiction was unrelenting, and the disorderly state of the restaurant sector at the time only served to fuel his tendencies. Desperation drove him to look for what he thought were remnants of crack in his carpet when he was at his lowest point. Bourdain didn't try to hide that darkness. When Kitchen Confidential made him famous, he was very open and honest about his struggle with substance abuse and the misery it caused. He went on to describe how it seemed like you were stuck in a never-ending downward spiral from which there was no way out. However, Bourdain eventually realized he had to evolve within the mayhem. Although he continued to rely on booze, he abstained from heroin and cocaine. He made a decision that let him follow his dreams and provide the world his own viewpoint, so it wasn't a clean and tidy recovery narrative. His readiness to reveal the flaws made Bourdain's path accessible. He never pretended that his troubles had been eradicated by quitting narcotics, even after achieving success. His struggles with depression and the overwhelming thoughts that plagued him were topics of open discussion. He helped many others, particularly those working in the stressful restaurant sector, by being open and honest about his struggles with mental illness. Looking back, though, he has a difficult connection with the night. Throughout his work and conversations, he casually brought up death and suicide, not in an overdramatic way, but as if he were always chatting with his own suffering. These weren't fleeting ideas. They foreshadowed an ongoing battle. One cannot not but wonder if his last deed was the climax of the struggles he had waged throughout his life.